Let's move on. Our next speaker is James Dewhurst. He's the Sales Director for UK and Ireland of Webfleet. And I'm going to say that carefully because once I introduced him and people thought he had webbed feet. All yours, James.
Thank you, JC. So for those that might be a bit more eagle-eyed, they may have seen on the agenda that it wasn't due to be me speaking today, so this is very last minute. My colleague Richard Parker, the EV lead for the UK, took ill this morning. So we are in transport, so I'm used to being thrown under the bus, so I can kick things off from here. And it's been really inspiring so far hearing. A quick introduction to me, I'm actually based in Inverness. I moved to Scotland 22 years ago, and when you think how quickly that time has gone like that, in 22 years' time, we're at 2045. So there's a lot of action that needs to be taken, and now we've got to do it. So when we look at us as a company, most people haven't heard of Webfleet because we were previously TomTom Telematics. We were acquired by Bridgestone in 2019. Bridgestone have got a mission to move towards a realization of a sustainable society. They're moving now into a mobility solutions company, away from a tyre producer, and they've recently launched their E8 commitment. I won't go through all 8, but energy, ecology, efficiency, and empowerment are all things that are key to where they're going. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing currently, what the roadmap looks like, and also starting off with some negatives, but I will move to the positives. We've recently conducted this survey. Now, this survey was done with over 200 fleet operatives. Quick hands in the air. Is there any fleet operatives in today? Anybody responsible for fleet of vehicles? A few, not many. So hopefully you're all connected to the fleet strategy and policy that we'll be talking about here. So there are some interesting findings that came out of these slides. So 75% of drivers feel their mental well-being has been impacted by the cost of living crisis. So when you think about just now, when you have drivers out on the road, they're going to be nervous about their driving and other things that are going on, but also they won't be as focused on decarbonisation because of the stresses and the pressures that come from being maybe having issues with mental health. 32% of fleets are downsizing, and that's going to be something that we're going to see some impact on as we go through. Now, 85% of fleets have actually been tasked with cutting fleet spend in 2023. So with cuts often comes movements away from decarbonisation, and we'll see that in a second. So that's something that people are really focusing on in this report. Now, also when you look at, this is the one that worries us, I think, most, is that 76% of the people that responded are saying they will delay their fleet decarbonisation moves due to current cost pressures. This is what we need to try and mitigate. So when we look at where we're going, in terms of some of these themes, we're here to try and help that transition. And I think everyone in this room has the same objective. So we need to try and get away from this scenario where people are putting it to the back burner because they need to look at cost, because people need to realise that sustainability and safety and decarbonisation go hand in hand. So that's where the fleets can help. So to understand where we are in our core proposition, Bridgestone Mobility Solutions is moving towards towards our overall strategy on decarbonisation. So you'll see the 5 different areas which I'll talk about as we go through, but we're looking at empowering transition at the bottom, right the way through to the full end-to-end battery management and all the stages in between. Now, this is quite a key part of the strategy, because when you start with, for example, empowered transition, this is a very corporate phrase, but what does it mean in reality? Well, it actually means collaboration. I don't think anybody's under any illusion that a single organisation can provide all of the solutions that are needed to transition a commercial fleet from ICE to a zero tailpipe solution. But the requirements of fleets going forward will be more complex, whether it's energy requirements, infrastructure, operating models, or payment systems. So, however, many operating fleets, the prospects of identifying, procuring, and implementing these different requirements can be immensely daunting. So what we're trying to do as a company is set up the team and bring these people together so that when we're speaking to our customers, we can help them transition empowered with the different areas that you see within the slides here. So if we look at the 4 stages of fleet electrification, we need to look at them in isolation, but also they work very well together. So if you look at stage 1, recognising the existing fleet contains many different types of vehicles, some of which don't have a zero-emission alternative. That's notwithstanding the current inflationary pressures on businesses. So therefore, the insight and data provides from decarbonising starts with your existing fleet. These data sets invariably will have the potential to save money and improve performance. We will briefly look at what this might mean for the other stages on the next slide. If you look at stage 2 in EV implementation and planning, we're a telematics business. We provide one of these elements with the total ecosystem that needs to be transitioned successfully to a zero-emission fleet. However, knowing precisely exactly what the fleet are doing, when, where, all of those things we just talked about as well in terms of TCO and also operational planning is going to be key. If we look at driver training, this is not necessarily related to telematics, but it's important in today's world for ensuring that driver safety, driver well-being, cost improvements, and when do you transition a vehicle, ensuring the vehicle performs from the start. And then going on to stage 4, it's measurable insights. So once you've made those fleet changes, how do you take action from there onwards? How do you record what your success looks like? Where do you go from that point forward? So very quickly, if we look at stage 1, what we're doing at the current stage, this is the benchmarking. So CO2 reporting will allow you to see exactly where you are so you can start to plan your quick wins and what you need to do to change it and what the savings will be. Stage 2, the fleet electrification planning, and there's lots of different reports within there, but the ability to be able to look at your current vehicle fleet, analyse the data and make recommendations based on which vehicles you can switch quickly, efficiently, and also start to look at the reporting of those you are switching. If we look at stage 3 for the driver training, and if I take, for example, Oxford City Council as a customer of ours, they've had to re-educate their drivers now they've got the electric vehicles about when they charge. Do they put them on charge when they come at the end of the day, every night? No, they don't need to, because sometimes they're only using 20% of the charge through the day. So they don't need to occupy those charges. And then you go on to stage 4, which is measurable insights. This is when you look at the fleet changes over the coming months. How do you bring those EVs onto the fleet? The chances are that the vehicles have been assessed based on a number of financial and operational criteria to ensure success. So the final part is the live data, and this is what reporting confirms the success of that planning that we've spoken about. Some of the things that are coming as well, we've already spoken about the operational challenges. We're now looking at order management for EVs, so you can actually build in planning, scheduling, routing, and charge times into their workflows, which is something that hasn't been traditionally done. This will allow fleets to actually transition vehicles that maybe need to charge multiple times during the day, whereas at the moment they're really only kind of looking at vehicles that can do everything on one day's life cycle. If we go on to smart charging, this is something that gets quite exciting because we've been looking at the vehicle, but actually now chargers have the OCCP protocol in them, so you can actually start to access data from the charger. But the things have always sat in 2 separate platforms. This year, we're going to bring those 2 together, so you can start to, as a fleet operative or as an operational planner, you can start to see which chargers are underutilised, which could be utilised more, which vehicles are on those chargers, are they being put on the right times, the right place, and this is where we really start to get to actionable insight and data. And also this will help manage some of the battery degradation that we're looking at doing as well. And then other things that are coming this year, reducing the battery cost of ownership and maintenance. Now, obviously, one of the biggest costs of an EV is that battery, so you want to make sure you can maintain that through the life cycle, because if you have to replace it after 3 years, your TCO calculations that we talked about go out the window. So you really want to manage that throughout the process. We're not only going to be able to tell you what that looks like right now, but what the predictability of that will look like in the future. And this is where data is going, looking at the current trends, how that you can affect it, and how you can intervene with it to stop that happening. Otherwise, your TCO is lost and your engagement might be lost amongst your workforce because that vehicle won't be fit for the purpose it was originally procured for. So, in summary, if you look at the 4 different areas that we talked about, as a data provider, we're very mindful of the challenges that lie ahead for fleet operators, and within our sphere of expertise, we are actively working to deliver solutions that will manage and mitigate some of the risks associated with the transition to EV commercial vehicles. However, here and now, the 4 stages on the screen, look at your existing operations and decarbonise what you can now, and cost savings can go hand in hand. Number 2, plan for change, understand what your fleet does for you now and where are the low-hanging fruits. Number 3, train your drivers. Make sure that some have had training, because some of them wouldn't have been trained since they passed their test and will never have touched an electric vehicle. And then finally, make sure you can measure and be able to take action when you transition vehicles so it becomes success for you as an organisation. You've also got to think that wider mobility is also thinking about if you need those vehicles at all, or if that journey actually needs to be made. So once you have that data, you'll be able to make those decisions. Thank you very much.
He walks well for somebody with webbed feet, doesn't he? And a brilliant substitute. So thank you for stepping in at the last minute, James. That was really much appreciated.